There was a small library at the edge of town. Most people never noticed it. The building was old. The books were worn. And hardly anyone came anymore. The librarian's name was Margaret. She was 72 years old. She had worked in that library for 40 years, and every single day she showed up with a smile. Most days, only 3 or 4 people visited. Sometimes, no one came at all. Her friends told her to retire. The town council wanted to close the library. They said it was a waste of money. But Margaret refused, because she knew something they did not. Books change lives, and even if she helped just one person, it was worth it. One Tuesday afternoon, a young man walked in. His name was David. He was 23 years old. He had dropped out of college, lost his job, and felt completely lost in life. He walked into the library because it was raining outside and he had nowhere else to go. Margaret looked up from her desk and smiled. "Welcome! Is there something I can help you find?" David shrugged. "I do not know. I am just looking around." Margaret nodded. She did not push. She just watched as David wandered through the aisles, running his fingers along the spines of old books. After 30 minutes, David picked up a book. It was about people who had changed careers late in life, people who had failed and started over, people who had found success when everyone told them it was too late. He sat down and started reading. 1 hour passed. Then 2. Then 3. When the library was about to close, Margaret walked over to him. "You can check that out if you want," she said gently. "Take your time with it." David looked up. His eyes were different, brighter, like something inside him had woken up. "Thank you," he said quietly. He checked out the book and left. Margaret did not think much of it. This happened sometimes. People came in lost and left with a book. She never knew if it made a difference. But 3 weeks later, David came back. He returned the first book and asked for another. Then another. Then another. Every week, David came to the library. And every week, he left with new books. Books about business, about psychology, about people who had overcome obstacles. Margaret noticed something. David was changing. His shoulders were less slumped, his voice was stronger, his eyes were focused. One day, David stayed after he returned his books. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Of course," Margaret replied. "Why are you so happy? This library is almost empty. The building is falling apart. Most people do not even know this place exists. How do you stay so positive?" Margaret smiled. She had been asked this question before. "Can I show you something?" she said. She led David to a wall behind her desk. On that wall were hundreds of letters. Old letters, some yellowed with age. "These," Margaret said, "are letters from people whose lives were changed in this library." She pulled one down and read it aloud. "Dear Margaret, 20 years ago I came to your library as a scared teenager. I was thinking about dropping out of school. You gave me a book about science. That book made me fall in love with learning. Today, I am a doctor. Thank you for seeing something in me that I could not see in myself." She pulled down another. "Dear Margaret, I came to your library when I lost my job. I was depressed and hopeless. You recommended a book about people who had rebuilt their lives. That book gave me courage. I started my own business. It is successful now. You saved my life. Margaret looked at David. I have hundreds of these letters. Hundreds of people whose lives changed because of something they read here. Because someone believed in them enough to hand them the right book at the right time. That is why I am happy, she continued. I do not measure success by how many people walk through that door every day. I measure it by the lives that are transformed. Even if it is just one person, that is enough. David's eyes filled with tears. I am one of those people, aren't I? Margaret nodded. You came in here lost, but you are finding yourself. I can see it. From that day on, David became a regular. Not just to borrow books, but to talk with Margaret. To share what he was learning. To figure out what he wanted to do with his life. 6 months later, David enrolled in online courses. He started studying business. He had a plan now. A direction. 1 year later, David got a job at a small startup. He worked hard, learned everything he could, and within 2 years he was promoted to manager. But he never forgot the library. Every month he came back to visit Margaret, to tell her about his progress, to thank her. And Margaret smiled every time. I did not do anything special. I just handed you books. No, David said. You believed in me when I did not believe in myself. You showed me that it was not too late, that I could start over. That is everything. One day, David came to the library with news. The town council was going to close it. They had made their final decision. The building would be sold. The books would be donated. Margaret took the news calmly. I am 74 now. Maybe it is time. But David could not accept it. This library had saved his life. It could save others too. So he did something. He started a campaign. He created a website. He shared his story. The story of how an old library and a kind librarian had transformed him from a lost young man into someone with purpose. The story spread. People who had been helped by Margaret started sharing their stories too. The doctor who had been the scared teenager. The business owner who had lost his job. Dozens of people. Hundreds. The local newspaper wrote an article. Then a TV station came. Margaret's story went viral. People from all over the country sent donations. Small donations. $5, $10, $20. But they added up. Within 3 months, they had raised enough money not just to keep the library open, but to renovate it. New books, new computers, new programs. The library reopened with a celebration. Hundreds of people came. People whose lives had been touched by Margaret over 40 years. The mayor gave a speech. This library is not just a building with books. It is proof that one person showing up every day with love and dedication can change the world. Margaret stood there, overwhelmed. She had never thought of herself as special. She had just done her job, showed up, cared about people. Believed in the power of books and second chances. David spoke too. Margaret taught me something. You do not need to change 1,000 lives to matter. If you change one life, you have changed the world. Because that one person will go on to touch others. And those people will touch more people. One act of kindness creates ripples that never end. After the ceremony, Margaret sat in her newly renovated library. She looked around at the full shelves, at the people reading and talking and laughing. A young woman approached her. She looked nervous. "Excuse me, are you Margaret?" "I am," Margaret said with a smile. "I just moved to town. I do not know anyone here. I am feeling really lost. Do you think you could recommend a book?" Margaret's smile grew wider. "I have just the one." She stood up, walked to a shelf, and pulled down a book. The same book she had given David all those years ago. "This book," Margaret said, handing it to the young woman, "is about people who felt lost and found their way. I think you will find it helpful." The young woman took the book. "Thank you." As she walked away, Margaret sat back down. She thought about all the people she had helped over 40 years. All the lives that had been changed by a kind word and the right book at the right time. She thought about David, about how one lost young man had become a leader, how he had saved the library that saved him. And she understood something deeply. You never know which moment will change everything. You never know which person will carry your kindness forward. You never know which small act will create waves that last forever. So you just show up, you do your best, you care about people, you believe in second chances, and you trust that it matters, even when you cannot see the results, even when it feels like no one notices. Because someone always notices. Someone is always watching. Someone is always being changed by your example. Margaret looked around her library one more time. At the people reading. At the children laughing. At the young woman with the book that might change her life. And she thought, this is what success looks like. Not fame. Not money. Not recognition. Success is knowing that you showed up every single day and did something that mattered. Success is believing in people when they do not believe in themselves. Success is planting seeds and trusting they will grow, even if you never see the tree. Margaret was 74 years old. She had spent 40 years in a small library that most people ignored. She had never been rich, never been famous, never been powerful. But she had changed hundreds of lives. And those hundreds had changed thousands more. She was not just a librarian. She was a gardener of human potential. And her garden had grown far beyond anything she could have imagined. That night, as Margaret locked up the library and walked home, she felt deeply content. Not because of the recognition or the renovation or the celebration, but because she knew beyond any doubt that her life had mattered. And in the end, that is all any of us really want, to know that we mattered, that we made a difference, that the world is a little bit better because we were here. Margaret had done that. One book, one person, one day at a time. For 40 years. And the ripples of her kindness would continue long after she was gone.